Awesome. Well, hello, Nadine. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me about Continue.
Of course, thanks for having me.
I think as someone who has known, unfortunately, multiple people who have either struggled or have unalived themselves for the topic of this film, I think it's very important that we discuss this subject and we don't discuss it lightly. And that's one of my favorite things about this film is it's not pretty. It's not sugar coated. It is very dark. It is very heavy. I had to pause it a few times.
Which
Um,
is normal. And I tell people, I'm like, I literally in a screening will be like, walk out if you need air. Like, take the time because I know it was important. I never pulled punches, but I also know that that's a lot to sit through if you aren't ready. And like everyone has to find it in their own time, and so, thank you for going on the journey and pausing when you needed to. That's great self-care.
Thank you. Thank you. So I wanted to ask you, as the writer and then the director and the star of this film, like, why was this so important for you to bring a story like this to life?
Because I lived it and I know exactly what that pain feels like. And I know how isolating and heavy it can feel. And so truly I made this movie for those that are struggling so that they will understand that they're not alone. I think the worst part about it is feeling like a burden. It's feeling like I don't like this word, but it really is how I felt at that time, like a freak. Something is wrong with me. No one else feels this way. No one else looks this way. Like, no one talks about it. So you assume it's just you. And, so I basically was like, all right, I'm going to be really brave. I'm going to put my pain out there. And I think it'll hopefully start a conversation so other people will do that too. But again, it was really important that I didn't pull punches so that the people who are struggling actually see themselves. When you give them this Hollywood polished version, they're like, well, that's not what I look like. I actually wish my depression or suicidal ideation looked like that. And so you still, again, you actually feel worse because you feel like, oh, something definitely is wrong with me. Because if that's what depression's supposed to look like, I am a lot different than that. And so truthfully, it was like, no, I'm telling this film in a really real way. And also another thing I really hoped it would do is anyone who's never experienced mental health, that they can look at someone maybe in their life that does and that is struggling with a new light, that they can maybe feel like they got a little bit of education. Like they could understand it in a little bit different way and maybe show up for the person in their life in a more real way, especially like, because a lot of the scenes from that movie are from my life. It was, there's a scene where my character explains to Shiloh Fernandez, Trenton, the character by the pool, that, how it works. And like, it's like an alcoholic will always want to drink, and a girl with bulimia will always, that conversation came from me trying to explain to my mom how a girl like me could not want to live, could not want to be on this planet. And those are the exact words I told my mom. And so that's exactly how I wrote it, because that's the best way I can rationalize it. So really, I put all these moments in my life hoping that someone could relate, or that they would, maybe someone who couldn't give words to it that way, it could help educate.
Absolutely. And I love how when you're explaining that to Trent and even the sister, because as someone who is very close and has friends that are like my siblings, it is always such a hard struggle. And you kind of do throw it back on yourself, and then you get angry at the person. And so I appreciated those moments. And it's like, well, it's not necessarily a solution. It's also like showing like, hey, yes, they're struggling, but you're also allowed to struggle, because it is hard. It's
Yeah.
so hard of a topic. And especially
Well,
like you said, when you don't deal with it yourself, you're just like, what is going on? This doesn't make any sense.
Well, I was just about to say, like, sometimes if you're the strong one, it's actually the hardest. Like, I'm the person in my life and with most people that they're like, she's so strong. She doesn't let anyone mess with her. She doesn't. I'm like, whew, if that was the case, like, but there, oftentimes when you need to be the buttoned up one or the strong one, you feel as if like again, you're just like hiding this pain inside, and there's nothing worse than having this pain that you feel like you can't express. Like, then you just have to sit in it. So, you know, I'm so happy that you said that, and especially about that scene, you know, because we can take it very personal, and I understand anger, because everyone is in a different, you know, it's like Kat's character is in a different place. She's lost numerous people. She's feeling like she's about to lose the person she loves more than anything. And sometimes when you feel out of control, anger is the first thing you do, because you don't know what else to do, you know? So I wanted to speak to that I understand also the anger, because sometimes you don't know what other emotion to use to try and like shake someone, you know? But a lot of times what we don't realize is like, you know, because people will ask me all the time, like, what do you say when someone's in that place? And yes, there are resources that will help you have that conversation, but a lot of times it looks like silence to me. I'm just there. I just hold space for someone. I just make sure they know they're not alone. I let them talk. Because a lot of times, like, you just want to know someone's there, you know, and has your back and supports you and loves you regardless.
Absolutely. And I love the relationship you built between your character and Trent. Talk to me about finding Shiloh, because I feel like you had to find someone that you had great chemistry with, but then can also like have such depth to himself, because he's not a one-dimensional character at all. He's not just like, I'm the support, you know?
Well, thank you for saying that, because that's what I wanted to. And I did want to make sure that it wasn't like the guy came along and he fixed the world. It's like, it's just as much a love story with Trenton as it is with Bria, you know, but for me, it was like every character needed to have their own arc and their own journey. And you know, and Trenton Shiloh's character, I feel like really had that, and with his own struggles with his mom. And, you know, but Shiloh brought another layer of it that's just basically a dream as a director, that you find an artist that is so immensely talented and takes the work so seriously, but also, you know, so it started just like, I've always loved his work, and we had met a couple times in passing, and which I'm sure, I don't even know if he remembers that, you know, like, so when I just went to him for the offer and then we sat down, we ended up being there for over 4 hours, and just, I know, just fell for each other on a human level. Um, and like a really deep bond formed really fast. And I was like, oh, we're doing this, you know, like, how did I get so lucky? But I don't believe it's luck. It really is. I follow my intuition every step. I think a big problem is that we don't trust ourselves sometimes, you know? And I knew he was my person, and I went to him and I got him. And then the chemistry is just so ridiculous between us, because we became really close. We became really close friends, and I'm obsessed with his wife and his family, and he loves my husband. And, you know, so like, we just like have this really close dynamic. And that's why he was in my second film too. And he'll be in all of my films, you know, so it's just, yeah, I got so lucky with my entire cast. I mean, everyone is just like so incredibly talented, you know, like Emily Deschanel too. You're like, hello, like, you know, just, she's a legend. She's been doing this forever. You know, so I was just so lucky. But Trenton in particular was like a really difficult character for someone to try on especially as a man, because I feel a lot of men aren't supposed to emote, or like, you know, and be emotional, or like have vulnerability. Like, Hollywood really paints them this way. And I'm like, all the men in my life are deeply emotional human beings, are deeply empathetic humans, like have the same highs and lows as anyone else. And I wanted to show that. I wanted to show that vulnerability. You know, because honestly, if I'm honest, like, I'm a very, like, trauma, I think, has made me just like a very like tough and strong and strong-willed. And like, so a lot of the men that are around me are the vulnerable, or thought, like my husband, like when I'm hard, he's gentle. Like, so it's like the ebb and flow. And so it's like, yeah, there are emotional, amazing men that aren't just, you know, brick walls. So I wanted to show that.
You're like, it's okay.
Yeah.
When it comes to telling such a personal story, and I feel like wearing so many hats is like a big like take on what's the word, like, for like, it's heavy. So, why did you want to make sure you do that? Why did you like, because you could have written it and starred in it, or you could have written it, directed to somebody else. So why did you want to make sure like this was entirely your package?
It didn't start as entirely my package. I did want to collaborate, and at first I was just going to act in it, and I was always and I wrote it, and I was always going to produce it, and I invested, I raised every time, I invested my life savings, like all of the things. So I was all in. Um, but I had made the lookbook, I had made the mood boards, I had started to like put the team together, I had done all this work, and my EP Cassie Always, who was my mentor through this process, was like, why are you searching for someone else to direct it? You've literally done all the work for them. And like, also, you do realize how much will be out of your control at that point. And like, this is like your child, it's your story. It's like, it's so deeply personal to you. And I just started ugly face crying. And I was like, I didn't think anyone would let me direct it. And he's like, yeah, this is your project. If that's what, and so I never looked back. He was like, I would believe in it more if you did. And it made me go like, well, shit, maybe other people will feel that way too. And like, why am I giving something away that I deeply wanted? I just think I was really afraid to admit how badly I wanted it.
Yeah.
And I think we do that as people. Like we'll pretend that, like, I think I really told my husband, I was like, I think I once said I have no interest in directing because I was talking to a director and like didn't think like I would be allowed to direct. Like when I was growing up, there was not very many female directors. I thought the place and how I got to create like that would only be in front of the camera. Like that was my value. You're the cute girl, you're in front of the camera. And what's really crazy is on my way to pursuing my passions, I found my purpose. Like writing and directing is actually my career now. Like it's really all I do. I haven't acted since Continue because I've been directing and I'm in development of so many projects and I'm writing so many projects. And so again, it's really funny when the universe, like we're like, I have a plan, and the universe is like, that's funny. So do I. And I'm like, oh, I actually really like your plan. Mine was small. And the universe was like, no, we're not thinking small. We're thinking big,
Yeah.
and shit, now I know what I'm capable of. I've worn 900 hats. I could wear 1,000.
Like, we got this. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. It's like, thanks, universe. I guess I'll listen now.
Yeah.
Because like I bet you can even like, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon it, right? Of every like little moment that maybe the universe was pushing you in that direction.
Oh, I say that all the time.
Yeah.
The actual thing that's changed my life is that I started listening to divine redirection. So like every time I get a rejection that I was actually really hoping for, or every time a door closes, or like, now I live in Woodland Hills and I lived in Santa Monica before, or something happened with our house. And I'm a Santa Monica, I'm a beach person. Like Woodland Hills is not my thing. And then all of a sudden I got this hit, like, I'm taking you to your best chapter. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna trust and I'm gonna go all in. Like that's the difference. I used to fight because like my fucking plan is good. Why can't we just do my plan? And then he's like, because I have a much better plan. And so I really have stopped. It has helped me. Like I keep putting my hands up like that because what I do when I start to try and control things, I'm a nervous like gripper. I'll like all of a sudden not realize I've been like clenching my hands the whole time. And I like open it and I'm like, Jesus, take the wheel, like literally. You gotta let go of control sometimes.
And it's one of the hardest things to do,
It is.
which I feel like, which weirdly ties us back to the movie, because that's something I think she had to learn to do in a way, was
Yeah.
was like kind of like, yeah, listen to the people, let the world take control, and like trust that everything's going to be okay while making this really tough decision in her life.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, what I find and what I definitely did in my younger years, and I mean, let's not pretend that like I'm perfect now and I still do it, but we can kind of sabotage ourselves and we can kind of listen to the voices even in our mind that we know isn't really healthy at the moment. And we really buy into the story, and there could be a million people around us that, God, the universe, whatever you believe in, is like, hey, hey, and we're like, we put blinders up. And that's very much what Dean had, and that's very much what I had, And the best thing that ever happened to me was finally getting help. And that's what I'm trying to tell people too, and why the institution, and why that, I swear that even if, you're going kicking and screaming, essentially, that eventually it will get better and you will be grateful for the help, for the redirection, sometimes the forced redirection that the universe or the people we love, I'm so grateful for it. I'm so grateful that I found my way here, and I wasn't then. And that's normal and that's okay. But that's what I'm just always trying to bring it back to, is like, what feels like it'll never change today, it will. Life changes. That's just the beast of it all, is that life is constantly in change. And if you do the work, you have the hard conversations, it can all change. My entire life is a completely different life than I ever thought was possible, and that is, again, because I ended up getting the help that I really needed.